Hello, I'm Jonathan Mason and I'm going to be talking about the first steps that you must take before going into ketosis. Now, we've been through my battle with type 2 diabetes. I've explained how diabetes works. I've explained what the problems are associated with pharmaceutical medications and how they work. I've spoken about a whole lot of diets that are on the market and how they affect the type 2 diabetic. I've also given a crash course on healthy eating for type 2 diabetics. Now, I will leave a link to all those videos in the description box below. But I'm not a doctor, so I must make this disclaimer, and I'll see you after that. Buckle your seatbelts, as this is the beginning of a great adventure of reversing your type 2 diabetes. I just want to take this opportunity to congratulate you for getting this far. And I will assume that you are prepared to make the decisions that will reverse your type 2 diabetes and become healthy again. So in the crash course in healthy eating for type 2 diabetes, I suggested a number of food items that we as type 2 diabetics should avoid and some that we should consume. But the problem is where to begin. When I was investigating this, some authors suggested I get a big great black bag and go through my kitchen and throw everything away that was unhealthy. It sounded like good advice. And I did that, but it just didn't seem to work for me. So after a while I was forgetting why it was unhealthy and that it was unhealthy in the first place. I also began to wonder if variations of that category of food was good or bad. Not only that, I didn't understand why it was bad for me. I didn't understand my disease. So I made a lot of mistakes and I would like you to avoid them. So if you haven't seen my video on understanding diabetes, then I would suggest viewing it. What I would suggest is that you go through your cupboards and tag what you think is bad for you from the guidelines that I have set out. Then begin investigating your food items and we'll see what sort of carbohydrates they have. Now, most packaged food should have a carbohydrate value written on them. Fresh fruit is relatively easy to find out if you go to Google and type in the food item which you want and then that you want the carbohydrate value of it. That will give you a really good starting point to find out what carbohydrate value is in each food. It is now that you must begin to count your carbohydrates. So get a good kitchen scale and weigh all your food that you're consuming and the carbohydrate value. When I say all your food, I mean everything. That would be the corn flour that you put in your gravies, the milk that you put in your tea, the juice that you drink, absolutely everything. Find out what the carbohydrates they have and write it down. Do this every time you consume anything. Then tally up what you have eaten during the day and its carbohydrate value. This will enable you to get a baseline of where you're at as far as your eating is concerned. It'll give you how many carbohydrates you're consuming in a day. But not only that, you will also know how many carbohydrates that you're consuming in each meal. Some healthy people can consume around 150 to 300 carbohydrates a day, depending on how fit they are. Some will consume a little more, especially if they're very active. But for a type 2 diabetic, we may have to consume considerably less, depending on how far our insulin resistance has progressed. You may be consuming far greater than that. But don't worry, just look at your medication, look at the carbohydrates that you're consuming and say, no wonder I'm on such a lot of medication. You know, it's not the end of the world. It's only the beginning point. So it is a point where you can take heart and say, this is where I am and what great prizes await for me when I get those carbohydrates down. Remember that carbohydrates are directly linked to your insulin resistance, which is the cause of your type 2 diabetes. Now, it is important that you have a machine like this to measure your blood pressure, and also a machine like this to measure your blood glucose levels. Now, it's also important to let your doctor know that you are doing a diet to help reverse your type 2 diabetes and that you may need closer monitoring. Here in the UK, they only call you in once a year to check your blood glucose levels and to see if you need adjustment in your medication, unless of course your type 2 diabetes is still very poorly controlled. But when you are on this diet, you will need closer monitoring than that, because your blood glucose levels will be coming down and you will need your medication altered. This diet is very effective and you do need to monitor yourself much more closely. Now, I would recommend that you start a medical diary like this one of mine that records the date along the side here, the time of the reading that I've got over here, the reading of your blood glucose levels, which I've got along here, my blood pressure reading, which I've got along here, and my pulse, which I've got along here. And I've also made an area for notations just on the sides here of any of the changes that I experience, so that I know what I'm doing, when I've done it, and what the effect has been on it. Now, the medical diary is a very important thing. Now, I would suggest that you eat only 3 meals a day, with about 5 hours apart, but not more than 6 hours apart. Now, after your evening meal, try not to eat anything. This period of fasting is really very important for the body to reset itself in preparation for the next day. What this does is it gives your body the opportunity to utilize any of the excess carbohydrates that have been stored in the liver and the muscle tissue, so that they don't get converted into fat. In my video, Understanding Diabetes, I do cover all this. If you do get hungry between these periods, then don't consume anything that has carbohydrates in it, but rather have a protein snack, like a boiled egg or some other sort of protein snack, like a meat of some sort. The times that I would suggest that you take your readings are upon waking up in the morning before breakfast, just before you have lunch, just before your evening meal, and just before you retire at night. Now, I'm suggesting before your meals because as soon as your body consumes carbohydrates, your blood glucose level goes up, and sometimes they do spike rather high, so it is a very unpredictable reading. Now you'll begin the real work. That is the process of beginning to reverse your type 2 diabetes, because now you are at a stage where you found out exactly how many carbohydrates you're consuming on a daily basis. You've started to record your readings, you have let your doctor know what you are doing, and you have identified what unhealthy foods you have in your house. Now you're ready to start this program. I'm suggesting a gradual process, as I don't want you to suffer the same unnerving and frightening events that I did when I was searching for this method of reversing my type 2 diabetes. If you haven't seen my videos on my battle with diabetes, then I would recommend it, as it will bring you some valuable insight into your own journey of the things that you might experience as well. So now that you have got a baseline of where you are at as far as your blood glucose readings are concerned and your blood pressure, you need to start eliminating a lot of the really unhealthy foods. Some foods will have a direct effect on your blood glucose, while others will be more subtle. Some foods I have recommended are just unhealthy, and they will restrict your path to reversing your type 2 diabetes, whilst others are directly linked to reducing it. I will assume that you are probably overweight, because I certainly was very overweight. So you should weigh yourself every week at the same time. For me, it's on a Friday night, just before I have a bath. When you get into the state of ketosis, your weight will come off. How quickly depends on how resistant you are to weight loss. This is directly linked to your metabolic rate, but we will discuss this more in future videos. When you start eliminating the unhealthy foods, you should see your carbohydrate count go down. Now, this is a very good thing. If you see it going up, then examine what you're eating and see why. So make a record of all the things you're eating because you should be weighing them out and recording the carbohydrate value. You will then be able to see what carbohydrates that you are consuming. But my advice is not to make too many changes all at once. You want to keep control of what you're eating. So eliminate just one thing at a time and see what it does to your body, and especially the blood glucose reading and your blood pressure. The chances are that you're consuming a lot of carbohydrates and very little fats and proteins. So as you cut out your carbohydrates, you might think of introducing more meats and fats to replace the calories, as you don't want yourself to go hungry. But it is important only to eat until you are satiated, and don't eat until you're stuffed. Now, this is easy to say, but not so easy to do. I had lost the ability to know when I was full, but gradually this came back to me, and all I was trying to do was to regulate my eating so that I stopped well before I was stuffed. When I began to feel like maybe I've had enough now, I would stop eating. You could, of course, count the calories, and then you will know that you're consuming enough energy for the day. But I would only suggest this for when you go into ketosis and you're still not losing your desired weight. Now, as a warning, and it is an important warning, never go below 600 calories a day, as that is officially considered starving, and your body will go directly to the muscle tissue and various organs to extract the energy that it needs. In fact, you should still stay well above that. So just eat until you are satiated. You don't have to be hungry. Now, the eventual objective is to bring your consumed carbohydrates to below 20 grams a day, as this will put you in a state of ketosis and your blood glucose readings will be very good. By this stage, you should be off your medication, as your body is not consuming many carbohydrates, but is going directly to the proteins and fats that you are consuming and the fat stores in your body. You will then stay in a state of ketosis until you lose all your excess weight, but all this for later videos. For now, just begin the process of removing all the unhealthy foods step by step and replacing them with natural healthy foods. Reduce your carbohydrates very slowly and monitor your readings very carefully. I would recommend that when you get to about 100 grams of carbohydrates a day, you reduce your carbohydrate intake by 10 grams per day for a period of a week at a time, before you reduce it any further. And when you get to around about 50 grams per day of carbohydrates, then you reduce it a little slower at the rate of about 5 grams per day for a period of 1 week at a time. Do this until you are in a state of ketosis, and that is when you are between about 10 and 20 grams of carbohydrates per day. Then don't reduce them anymore. You must always consume some carbohydrates with every meal, as it is very important that you have some carbohydrates in your system to keep your blood glucose levels stable. And remember that carbohydrates feed the nervous system. So don't do away with carbohydrates altogether. Now, when you notice your readings, both your blood glucose and or your blood pressure go down, then go to the doctor so that they can prescribe you a lesser dose of your medication. It is also important to keep a good relationship with your doctor. So take your medical diary with you so that you can show your doctor what you're doing and they can view it and monitor it with you. These are the parameters that your blood glucose reading should be in. Now, this statement is not an authoritative statement, but it has proved very useful for me, although now my readings are below the ideals that are stated. Now, before breakfast, your blood glucose level should be between 4 and 7.2 mmol, but ideally around about 6.1. 2 hours after meals, it should be under 10 mmol, ideally around about 7.8. Note that my recommended times was just before meals, which is about 5 to 6 hours after your last meal. Now, at bedtime, it should be between 5 and 8.3 mmol. This is the conversion from mmol to mgdl is over here beside me. So this should help serve you as a guide when monitoring your blood glucose levels. And it should give you some sort of comfort to know where you are and how your readings are fluctuating throughout the day. But I would say the most important reading is the one in the morning. It's because it's a fasting one. So you've had the whole night and you can see how far down your blood glucose readings have got to. It is also important at this stage that you begin to introduce yourself to a very good multivitamin. The food we consume cannot give you all the vitamins and nutrients that your body needs. This will be covered in later videos. But to start with, and start right in the beginning, get yourself a very good multivitamin. And don't try and go cheap on this one. Look at the list of ingredients and choose the one that has the most to offer. As you nearer the state of ketosis, it will be important that you get extra vitamin supplements as you lose a lot of vitamins in your urine as ketosis acts as a diuretic. But I will cover this in the next video on the state of ketosis. But just as a parting note, I know that you are very keen to reverse your diabetes as quickly as possible. I would beg you to be patient with yourself. I went through some very frightening experiences and I would like you to avoid them. Your diabetes did not happen overnight. So take the time to reverse it gradually and responsibly. Learn to understand your disease and how to manage it. This is a very serious disease and a very unforgiving disease. You only have one life here on earth, and I want you to have a healthy and long life. You will regain your health and vitality. You will be you again. I know because I've been there. By changing our lifestyle choices, we can put ourselves in that position where our bodies are functioning as normal, healthy people. Even if we are not able to come off our medication completely, you will at least have minimized your exposure to the pharmaceutical medications and would have given yourself the best fighting chance of living a healthy and more energetic lifestyle, and would have halted the need to keep increasing your medications because you will have learned how to manage it. So stand guard at the entrance of your mind and only allow yourself to do the things that are beneficial to your health and well-being. It is good for you and for those who love you. All my videos on this program are free to look at. I give you the exact diet plan I followed and the formula for you to calculate your own meal plans. I also give you the information of how to go into the diet safely and to avoid some of the experiences that I had and how to come out of it safely. There is also advice on how to manage your diet and accordingly your diabetes once you have stabilized. I give you advice on what to look for as you grow older and maintain that self-rewarding health. Now reward yourself with good health and change your lifestyle like I did. Enjoy more vitality and experience the joy of living life. Now, in my next video, Critical Turning Point of Ketosis in Your Food, this is where we look at what ketosis is and have a closer look at our food. This will empower you to make the best out of your successes thus far. So please join me in my next video, Critical Turning Point, Ketosis and Your Food. If you would like to help me reverse type 2 diabetes around the world, then please like, subscribe and share these videos. But if you would like to get more involved in helping me to spread the word in a more direct way, then please go to my website where you can find the program's mission statement along with a complete set of videos and a whole lot of other helpful aids that a type 2 diabetic could need. It is also a place where I hope to build a supportive community environment. Now, I would like to thank anyone in advance who graciously donates to the cause and shares these videos. It is this support that enables this information to reach more people and to change lives. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.